Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this simultaneous meeting of Babergh District Council Cabinet. Yes, okay,
Mid
I'm
Suffolk
ready.
District Council
Okay,
Cabinet.
thanks, Rob.
May I first of all remind you of some domestic arrangements. Please ensure that microphones are turned off when not in use. Please do not interrupt other speakers. If you're attending the meeting to speak and persistently interrupt the meeting, you may be asked to leave.
Suffolk District Council
Okay,
Cabinet.
thanks,
Please
Rob.
remember to use the chat
First of
function only to indicate that you wish to speak and not to post comments or questions. And please note that messages in the chat panel can be viewed by people watching the live broadcast. I would like to remind everyone present that this meeting will be broadcast live to the internet and will be capable of repeated viewing. The whole of the meeting will be filmed, except where there are confidential or exempt items. If you make a representation to the meeting, you will be deemed by the Council to have consented to being filmed. By entering this meeting as a speaker, you are also consenting to being recorded by the Council and to the possible use of those images and sound recordings for webcasting and/or training purposes. The Council, members of the public and the press may record, film, photograph or broadcast this meeting when the public and the press are not lawfully excluded. I will now ask the Governance Officer to carry out the introductions.
Thank you, Chair. In addition to the Cabinet members from Babergh and Mid Suffolk, we also have the following councillors attending the meeting: Councillor Lavinia Haddingham, Councillor Rachel Eburn, Councillor John Field, Councillor Alistair McCraw and Councillor Keith Wellham. We also have the following officers in attendance: Chief Executive, Deputy Monitoring Officer, the Assistant Director for Customer Services, the Assistant Director for Housing, Corporate Manager for Finance and Commissioning and Procurement, and Professional Lead for Key Sites and Infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I move to the agenda, please? Item 1, apologies for absence. I will now ask the Governance Officer to roll call for the members present.
Thank you, Chair. If you could indicate your presence when I call your name. Babergh District Council members: Councillor Clive Arfey.
Present.
Councillor Dave Busby.
Present.
Councillor Derek Davis, I don't believe we have in attendance. Councillor Michael Holt.
Present.
Councillor Elizabeth Malvisi.
Present.
Councillor Jan Osborne.
Present.
Councillor Lee Parker.
Present.
Councillor John Ward.
Present.
Thank you. And for Mid Suffolk, Councillor Gerard Brewster.
Present.
Councillor David Byrne.
Present.
Councillor Julie Flatman.
Present.
Councillor Jessica Fleming.
Present.
Councillor Peter Gould.
Present.
Councillor Susie Morley.
Present.
Councillor Harry Richardson.
Present.
And Councillor John Whitehead.
Present.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Item 2, to receive declarations of pecuniary and non-pecuniary interest by members. Are there any to declare? Item 3, MCA/19/67, confirmation of the minutes of the meeting of the Mid Suffolk Cabinet meeting held on the 6th of July 2020 at 11:30 AM. Are there any points regarding the accuracy of the minutes? Thank you. Could I have a proposer, please?
Yes, Chair, happy to propose. Councillor Julie Flatman.
Thank you, Councillor Flatman. And a seconder, please.
John Whitehead, happy to second.
Thank you, Councillor Whitehead. The Governance Officer will now conduct the electronic vote.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to hand over to Mandy, who will talk you through the instructions for carrying out the vote.
Okay, so councillors, if you can, in your modern.gov app, if you can go to the plus sign and then into the voting option. There should be an in progress vote.
No.
Oh, hold on.
Have you started it, Claire?
Yes, I have now. Sorry.
So there should be a blue line for the vote that is in progress. If you click on that blue line, you should get your voting options. Can you see how many votes you're waiting for?
Thank you.
Claire?
We've just got 7 votes. Chair, can I ask for your vote, please?
Oh, I've lost it. I vote for, thank you.
Thank you. So that is unanimous, Chair. 8 votes for.
Lovely, thank you. I'm now going to hand over to Councillor Ward for the Babergh Cabinet meeting.
Thank you. Right, the Babergh. Oh God, it's gone frozen on me. Yeah, paper BCA 1958. The minutes of the Babergh Cabinet meeting held on the 6th of July at 9 AM. You'll find these on pages 7 to 12 of your agenda pack. Is everyone happy for accuracy and content, please? If there are no questions, may I have a proposer?
I'll propose, John, if you want to. It's Clive Arthy.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Arthy. And may I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Malvisi.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I'll hand over then for the electronic vote.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So again, if Babergh members can select the vote which should show is in progress.
Yeah.
Okay, we have received all those votes. Can I ask Councillor Holt, please, as well?
Yes, I approve.
Thank you. So that's 7 out of 7 for, Chair. So that's unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to item 4, MCA/19/68, the confirmation of the minutes of the meeting of the Mid-Suffolk Cabinet meeting held on the 6th of July at 2:30. Are there any points regarding the accuracy of the minutes? Thank you. Can I have a proposer, please?
Councillor Jessica Fleming, I'm happy to propose these minutes as accurate.
Thank you, Councillor Fleming. And a seconder, please.
I'm happy to second, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Brewster. The Governance Officer will now conduct the electronic vote.
Thank you, Chair. If you can now cast your votes, please. Thank you. Chair, can I ask for your vote, please?
Vote for, thank you.
Thank you. So that again is unanimous, 8 votes for.
Thank you very much. And I'll now hand over to Councillor Ward for the Babergh Cabinet minutes.
Thank you. Right, that's paper BCA 1959, the minutes of the Cabinet meeting we held on the 6th of July at 2:30 PM. Are there any comments regarding accuracy accuracy or content, please, from anyone? If not, may I have a proposer, please?
I'm happy to approve, John.
Yeah,
Thank you, Councillor Holt. And
Proposal.
second, Councillor Arthey. Thank you. And okay, then can we conduct the electronic vote now, please?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, councillors, if you could cast your votes now.
It's still showing as not started.
Okay.
I don't know where I am.
Okay. Mandy, is the vote in progress? Hello, Mandy.
Mandy's on hold.
Okay.
Yeah, it's certainly not started according to my screen here.
Yeah.
Okay, I think for this, if you're happy, Chair, I'll do this via roll call.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So when I call your names, if you could indicate for, against or abstain. Councillor Clive Arthey.
For.
Councillor Dave Busby.
For.
Councillor Michael Holt.
For.
Councillor Elizabeth Malvisi.
For.
Councillor Jan Osborne.
For.
Councillor Lee Parker.
For.
And Councillor John Ward.
For.
Thank you, Chair. That's unanimous again.
Thank you. So the minutes of the meetings have been confirmed and will be signed at the next practicable opportunity. Now moving on to item 5, to receive notifications of petitions in accordance with the Council's petition scheme.
None received, Chair.
Thank you. Item 6, questions by councillors.
None received, Chair.
Thank you. Item 7, matters referred by the Overview and Scrutiny or Joint Audit and Standards Committees.
There were none.
Thank you. Item 8, forthcoming decisions list. Does anybody have any comments? No, thank you very much. So item 9, MCA/19/69 and BCA/19/60 are the General Fund Financial Monitoring Reports for 2020/21, quarter 1. So I'll now invite the Mid-Suffolk Cabinet Member for Economy to introduce the Mid-Suffolk District Council report.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. In my finance capacity, I will introduce the report, being General Fund Financial Monitoring for quarter 1, which starts on page 15 of today's Mid-Suffolk pack. This is an important report as it's the first time that we've set out in a public record our best estimates of the impact of COVID-19 on the Council's finances. Section 5, which is headed Financial Impacts of COVID-19, contains 3 pages of detailed narrative explaining the additional costs we've incurred, the income reductions suffered, the impact on council tax and business rates, the financial support we've had from central government, and the medium-term implications. Now, many figures within the report can only be best estimates based on present knowledge and careful considered assumptions about the balance of the year, but gradually the impacts on our council finances and the challenges arising are becoming clearer. Council income variances against budget have in previous years usually been positive, often quite significantly. So the forecast for 2021 comes as quite a shock. In the first quarter alone, we've seen a 700,000 adverse effect, and we anticipate for the full year a £2.4 million effect. And that's based on income starting to recover and with no further lockdown. As section 5.4 bleakly states, if things don't recover as quickly as hoped, then the situation will be far worse. The additional costs incurred have been outlined in section 5.1. There's been various tranches of financial support from central government, as detailed in section 5.8, totalling 1.34 million, and further support has recently been announced for sales, fees and charges, and this is in the process of being evaluated. The report sets out the reasons why the impact of business rates and council tax will hit us in 2021 and beyond, rather than this year, due to the way the collection fund works, with its built-up reserve acting as a short-term buffer. It's clear, even at this stage, that the budget process for 2021, including the 4-year medium-term outlook, will be a particularly challenging exercise. COVID-19's impact on this year's outturn, net of government support, may be around 1.9 million. However, there are several budget savings identified and other items that lead to an unfunded gap of 970,000. The council has a strong reserve position, some reserves being of a general contingency nature and some specifically earmarked. The Section 151 officer is confident that these reserves are sufficient to manage the impact on 2021, and I concur with this view. There are, of course, many other day-to-day variances arising, and these are set out in the table in section 6.7. One notable one is the staff vacancy management, which currently anticipates to be £592,000 positive. Taking everything into account, the overall deficit position, subject to further budget variances, is expected to be £101,000. As I said at the start of this introduction, the financial position is merely for noting at this stage. Our capital spending programme has been delayed as a result of COVID-19, and Appendix D has the details. It's impossible to overstate the amount of thought, effort, and analysis that our finance team have put into evaluating our financial position in these unprecedented times, and I'd like to acknowledge this and thank them. So, Madam Chairman, it just remains for me to move the recommendations set out in section 3 and to ask for a seconder. Thank you.
Do we have a seconder?
Madam Chair, I would very much like to second this report and its recommendations. I think it's a reflection of the fundamental competence of this administration when it comes to finance. And as the portfolio holder said, the quality and dedication of our finance team, that we have the options that we do have in terms of managing the pressures which are severe arising from COVID. And I think it's a testament to the wisdom of the approach taken in terms of building up the level of reserves that we have, that we're able certainly to manage the position in the current financial year, albeit we face, as Councillor has said, we face some real challenges in the years ahead. Thank you very much. So I'd like to second the report.
Thank you very much, Councillor Gould. And I now hand over to Councillor Ward for the Babergh report.
Thank you, Councillor Morley. And I'd like to introduce paper BCA 1960, which is the General Fund Financial Monitoring for the first quarter of the current financial year for Babergh. So I'm pleased to present report BCA 1960 to Cabinet, the General Fund Quarter 1 Financial Monitoring, covering the revenue and capital financing performance for the period April to June 2020. This is our first look at how we think our General Fund is shaping up for the full year compared to the budget, and this year, of course, incorporates the impact of COVID-19 on the Council's finances. As you are all aware, the challenges presented by the COVID-19 outbreak have resulted in significant unplanned costs and loss of income. However, this is a change in position, and the information presented here will change during the year. Taking this into consideration, I am pleased to report that the position for the Council is positive at this early stage in the year. We are anticipating a surplus of £62,000 compared with budget, and this is net of favourable and adverse variances in the cost centres and income streams. The key variances of the full year forecast compared with budget are set out in paragraph 6.7. The main adverse variances are additional COVID expenditure of £923,000. There's a risk to the business rates pooling benefit due to COVID-19 of £323,000. And we've got income lost from a number of revenue streams: planning £251,000, waste £231,000, building control £106,000, and car parks, car park income down £88,000, and licensing £70,000. There's also an adverse variance of £103,000 on CIFCO. and other commercial investments of £175,000. But these are offset by underspends and additional income from a number of sources. We've received additional funding, including monies from central government to support COVID-19 of £1.66 million. And we've got a positive vacancy management saving of £592,000. The financial impact of COVID-19, the additional costs, income reduction, impact on council tax and business rates, offset by the financial support we have received to date, is presented in section 5 of the report. The total income loss is currently 2.2 million, but this does include SIFCO, which is not in the overall position in terms of our £62,000 surplus, as we will accrue for any shortfall at the end of the year. As described in paragraph 5.9, we are still awaiting the additional support for irrecoverable sales fees and charges income, which will improve our position. However, the total impact of COVID-19 is currently £3.1 million, and government support only covers less than half of this, leaving us to fund the remainder. Budget savings will help here, but there is still, at the present time, an unfunded gap of £640,000, which will have to be funded from reserves. As I said earlier, this figure will undoubtedly change as the year progresses. The medium-term position presented in paragraphs 5.13 to 5.15 is unfortunately more worrying and shows an increasing deficit from £1.1 million to £2.3 million over the 3 years to 2023 to 24. Further savings will need to be identified, and a comprehensive budget challenge commenced last month. However, unfortunately, the impact of COVID-19 is likely to be felt for many years to come. Paragraph 6.11 of the report summarises the current predicted movements in the Transformation Fund, with a forecast balance of £880,000 at the end of the year. At this stage, we're not showing a transfer of any of the £62,000 surplus to this, as it is likely, along with other reserve movements, to change. The Transformation Fund details are provided in Appendix B. Appendix A shows how we're spending the business rates pilot. £812,000 of this is still unspent, of which £280,000 is as yet unallocated. And Appendix C sets out our general fund earmarked reserves, including forecast transfers. These reserves remain steady at around £5.2 million, excluding SIL. And paragraphs 6.12 to 6.16 provide more detail on the specific movements. Our general fund capital programme is detailed in Appendix D and paragraphs 617 to 620. This is currently forecasting a significant underspend of £21.7 million. Several projects have been delayed as a result of COVID-19, including the further investment at SIFCO, which is now expected to be fully invested towards the end of next year. Work is underway on the joint asset management strategy, and this will set out plans to utilise the Strategic Investment Fund. Therefore, any spends will be carried forward to 2021 to 2022. Finally, I'd like to thank our finance team for all their hard work in tracking the progress against budget in a rapidly changing situation, as well as preparing the regular returns to government. Before opening up for questions and debate, I'd first like to move the recommendations in section 3 of the report, that the surplus of £62,000 be noted and that the capital programme be noted. May I have a seconder for these recommendations, please?
Have a seconder for?
I'm happy to second, John.
Thank you, Councillor Osborne. So I'm now going to look for questions from both Mid Suffolk and Babergh cabinets. If anybody would like to indicate by raising their hand in the chamber. No questions? Okay, thank you. So questions from any other members present. Councillor Eburn, you have a question?
Thank you very much, Chair. I've got several questions, if I may, so I'll be as brief as I can. But I'd also like to echo Councillor Whitehead's remarks to thank the finance staff particularly for their work, because it is a very sort of fast-changing arena at the moment with different government grants and so forth. So my thanks to them as well. Just with regards to the grants that we do receive from government, we're expecting at some point this grant that will cover 75% of losses beyond 5% of planned income. do we have any indication of when that might be, or when we'd expect to hear from government? And on a similar note, with regards to car park income in Mid Suffolk, the report refers to a loss there of 160 on 6.7, paragraph 6.7, and that's in relation to what we'd have expected for the whole year of £661,000 in income. And I just wondered if that loss is for the whole year and whether we're expecting that to change. And very briefly, on paragraph 6.11, it refers to £829,000 spent towards the former council headquarters, and I wanted an explanation on that, if I may. And finally, the disabled facilities grant. I note the underspend, and of £910,000, and I know that we are looking to move to improve that in future. But I just wondered when we would see options to improve this. Thank you very much, Chair. Much appreciate being able to ask these questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Eben. Councillor Whitehead, do you or your officer team wish to reply to that?
Well, yes, I'll make a start anyway. The grant foreseeable from the government to cover this loss of income on the various lines is obviously going to be very welcome received. My understanding at the moment is that we'll be doing 3 returns over the rest of the year. One at the end of September, well, within September, to cover the period April to July, and that payment should come through in October. Then one in December for the period August to November, payment in January, and then finally one for the balance of the year, which we'd expect to get in May 2021. So as we say, the first 5% against budget, we're going to take the hit ourselves, and then the government are saying that we'll pay 75% of the loss beyond that. And at the moment, we anticipate that could be in the region of £790,000. And I think I've answered, in terms of the cash flow, when that will be coming in. Second question I noted about the car park income, 361,000. Well, that is the best estimate at this point in time. So I'm just trying to find it again. Obviously, we had the issue with the machines back in April and May being covered. And going forward, the 361 is a full year best estimate. But obviously, anything could change between now and the end of the year, including lockdowns or whatever. But that's our best estimate at the moment for a full year figure. HQ spend extra. Let me just find that within the report. I believe that'll be to do with mainly security type aspects, but if an officer can just confirm that or add more details.
John, that was paragraph 6.11. That helps. It's
yes.
just that had appeared, it hadn't been in the previous reports. That's
6.11.
In the table.
Yes. Well, I'm thinking that's coming from the Growth and Efficiency Fund, so that will, I assume, be costs to progress the various build outs, on our program of build on that site, which is mainly, I believe, market sales properties. But if one of the members of the officers could just confirm that. Or not.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Councillor Whitehead. Yep, the officers were just conferring on that one. We think, I think it might be a contribution to capital towards the works that are being done at the HQ site. But I think we will need to just confirm that one outside of the meeting and let everybody know.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And just the last one was just on the disabled facilities grant, and whether we would potentially see some options on that one. Thank you very much.
Yes, disabled facilities grants.
Which page was that on, Rachel?
That was paragraph 620.
620, thank you.
Thank you.
So I was looking at the appendix 620. Yes, it says options are currently being considered on expiry of the current contract arrangements, which is due to expire at the end of November. So my anticipation is we'll be bringing that forward fairly soon. But again, if officers could just confirm if there's any date known at this time.
Gavin, would you like to respond?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everybody. So just in relation to DFGs, we are actually bringing a report to Cabinet next month in respect to the ending of the current Orbit HIA contract and our proposals to bring that service in-house. That is a paper that will also be considered by the Joint Overview and Scrutiny Committee at their next meeting as well. So the replacement for the existing service will take effect from November this year, and officers have been busily working on that over the past 3 months.
Yeah, thank you very much for that.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Councillor Field.
Thank you.
No, you've muted yourself.
The benefit is you can't hear yourself swear when you do that. Just looking at page 23, I think Rachel's got most of the questions I would have wanted, but looking at the vacancy management factor, so that's quoted on 23. First of all, that is for Mid Suffolk, is it? Because I thought I heard Councillor Ward mention 592 grand for Babergh, and it sounds like the same number. But the real question there is in two ways. That seems quite a large number. It suggests we're quite way, 10 people plus below budget. So my question, in a way, is twofold. One, if that is a large number, then sort of what work are we not getting done because we have that number of people not in the establishment? And the alternative way of looking at that, perhaps, is if we don't actually need them, why are they in the budget in the first place? Thank you.
Who would like to have a go at that? Arthur?
Yeah, I put my hand up. Thank you, Chairman. Yes, you're absolutely right. We're constantly looking at our staffing complement, Councillor Field, to make sure that we've got the right resources to match the needs that all councillors would expect us to deliver. Obviously, the COVID situation has a significant impact. That's not to say we haven't been doing any recruitment during the pandemic period. We have had some virtual recruitment, and I know Gavin Fisk is appointing, or rather recruiting, later, I think in the next couple of weeks, for a key post, for example, in terms of building services manager, and that's a virtual recruitment exercise. So we have been able to do some recruitment during this period, but of course it's different, and so we've not been able to recruit in the normal way, and so we have had slightly more vacancies than we normally would have held. You're right in terms of roughly the kind of numbers you were talking about, because that needs to be put against an overall staffing complement of over 500 people. So we're still talking about a relatively low number in terms of an overall vacancy percentage, as it were. But it's something we will constantly keep under review. I'm sure, like all councillors, you would like us to have the right number of staff, not too many, not too few, to make sure that we can deliver what you would want us to achieve.
Thank you very much.
Can I just
Absolutely. Could I just, sorry, John, could I just check the thing? What is it we're not delivering, of course, of those vacancies, or are they distributed so it's not identifiable?
So that certainly sitting here today in front of you, I couldn't give you a definitive in terms of where each of those vacancies sit, but they are distributed as not one service area in that regard. It's equally not one vacancy that's been sitting vacant throughout. So it will be a combination of a post, for example, that's vacant, then filled, different post becomes vacant, and then be filled again. So it's not simply, to use your example, 10 posts that have sat vacant throughout the period of time. But if members would like more detail on that, we can certainly provide that in terms of where those vacancies are certainly the one that I can easily talk about is my other strategic director. As you appreciate, Jonathan Stevenson left just before Christmas. That was a decision that we were going to go out to recruitment around about March, ironically. And I've made the decision that it would be inappropriate to do so in the meantime. And we may well, and I'll need to give some consideration as to whether it becomes appropriate, but that's a decision for further on down the line.
Thank you.
Thank you. John Whitehead, did you want to carry on?
Well, just to the point in terms of the figure quoted for Mid Suffolk and the figure quoted for Babergh is an identical figure, but that's basically because the total saving is split literally 50-50 is how we do split staff costs.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor McGraw.
Thank you, Chair.
Now you've muted yourself again.
There we go. I think that's working now. My
Yep.
apologies, Councillor Morley. We had some figures from Councillor Whitehead regarding the government grants that might address a shortfall for Babergh, for Mid Suffolk. I wonder if we could have similar figures for Babergh from Councillor Ward or an officer.
Right. Yes. If I just
Which page are you looking at, Councillor McGraw?
Well, actually, I'm just referring to the figures that were supplied in response to Councillor Eburn's question regarding government grants that might address the shortfall, with us absorbing the first 5%. Then there was a mention of 75%. Now I make that 80%. So I'm wondering what's happened to the other 20%, or if I've missed something.
Right. Well, the equivalent figure for Babergh is that we are expecting £557,000 to be covered by the government. The way it's calculated, that the first 5% of income is taken out of the equation, and then we look at the losses on the rest and take 75% of that, which is where what the government will cover us for. So in total, the estimate at the moment for Babergh is, as I said, £557,000.
So a fairly limited form of insurance.
Yeah, but quite a good one,
Okay,
to be honest. It's certainly a better position than we could have expected some months ago. So, but I would have to say that it doesn't cover commercial income losses. But then the way we're looking at CIFCO at the moment is that a lot of those, well, a lot of the reduction in CIFCO income will be deferred rather than lost. So it does make sense for the commercial income to be excluded from this picture.
Okay. So
Thank you, Councillor Ward.
Somewhat similar to an excess.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, very much so. Yeah.
Councillor Field, you've still got your hand up. Would you like to take it down? Or have you got another question?
I'll take it down.
Thank you. Arthur, have you got a question?
No, apologies, just hadn't taken the hand down.
Okay. Councillor McCraw, have you got another question? On the assumption that's no more questions from Councillor McCraw, I'm now going to open up the item for debate. So would you like to indicate by raising your hands if you would like to speak? No? Okay, thank you. I will now ask the Governance Officer to conduct the electronic vote. Thank you. Hello, are there any governance officers available to start the vote?
Apologies, Chair, I was on mute. I was happily chatting away. Okay, let me just start that vote for you. So your vote should now show in progress. So if you could cast your votes. Sorry, one moment. Right, hold on one moment for me. I'm going to start that again. Okay, so Mid Suffolk members, your vote should now be in progress if you could cast your votes. Okay, we're waiting for one more vote to come in.
Yes, that's
yourself,
mine. I don't seem to have the line item to vote on. I'm sorry, Councillor Fleming.
Okay, I suggest then we take your vote and Councillor Morley's vote as a verbal vote, if that's okay with you, Chair.
Yes, that's
okay,
fine.
so if I can ask Councillor Fleming, for, against or abstain?
For.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Morley?
For, thank you.
Thank you. So that's 8 votes for, Chair. That's unanimous. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you. And if you could now do the Babergh.
Yeah, we'll now go over to Babergh. So when the blue line shows us in progress, if I could ask you to place your votes. Okay, we're still waiting for one member.
Madam Chairman, that might be me. It's Councillor Jan Osborne. My blue line hasn't come up to enabling me to vote.
Okay, it may be. Can you see the item on there? Can you actually see? Oh, you can.
Yeah.
Okay. Again, then I will take your vote, Councillor Osborne, verbally. So if I go alphabetically, Councillor Holt, for, against or abstain, please.
For.
And Councillor Osborne?
For.
Thank you. So that's unanimous, Chair, 7 votes for. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Moving on to item 10. This is MCA/19/70 and BCA/19/61, the Housing Revenue Account Financial Monitoring Report for Q1 for 2020/2021. I will now invite the Mid Suffolk Cabinet Member for Economy to introduce the Mid Suffolk, I apologise, Cabinet Member for Finance to introduce the Mid Suffolk District Council report.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yeah, I'd like to make a brief introduction to report MCA 1970, which is the Housing Revenue Account Financial Monitoring for Q1. Again, as with the General Fund report, this report includes assessing the impact of COVID-19 on the Council's finances. As always with the HRA, the short-term outlook should also be reviewed in the context of a rolling 30-year business plan. The budgeted in-year deficit of 564,000 is currently expected to more than double to 1.159 million. Now, the line-by-line details which are driving this increase are set out in table in paragraph 6.3, supported by the narrative in paragraphs 6.6 to 6.9. COVID-19 impact is a principal driver, with an anticipated rental income loss of 792,000. Income loss in the first quarter has actually been minimal and primarily void related, but there are real concerns that some employed tenants will be impacted by the ending of the furlough scheme in October. We would hope that it will be a case more of rental payments deferred rather than rental income lost, but obviously the outcome is very unclear and we subject to close monitoring over the coming months. This report also covers the HRA capital programme. Spending in the first quarter was minimal as a consequence of COVID-19. The number of projects have fallen behind schedule. The detail is in Appendix A and the section on capital in the report, starting at paragraph 611. The financial position is for noting only at this early stage. I'd like to move the recommendations to that effect as set out in section 3 of the report. I would like to invite Councillor Julie Flatman as Cabinet Member for Housing to second those recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm really happy to second the proposal. And I'd also like to say that there's been so much work done during the COVID and the shutdown that, you know, it's been business as usual or even more business. And I think our housing team have done a fantastic job. And we will support those residents who are finding themselves in difficulty. And it's not... we will be working with them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Flatman. Over to you, Councillor Ward, for Babergh.
Thank you. I would like to introduce report BCA 1961 to the Cabinet, which is the Housing Revenue Account Q1 financial monitoring for this year. The report covers the HRA revenue budget and the capital programme, and like the General Fund report, extrapolates a forecasted outcome for the full year compared with the budget based on the data from the first 3 months of the financial year. It too incorporates the impact of COVID-19. And the subject to further budget variations that arise during the rest of the financial year, a deficit of £17,000 is forecast. This is an adverse variance of £351,000 compared with the original budget surplus, and all this is detailed in section 6.3 of the report. A detailed breakdown of the actual variances is shown in section 6.6 to 6.10 of the report. The principal contributor to this is an adverse variance of £882,000 in income from dwelling rents. And obviously this is forecast as a result of COVID-19 and is based on a reduction of 15% for 26 weeks and is after taking into account those tenants receiving housing benefit or universal credit. However, this is an unclear position and much hopefully will be deferred rather than lost. Offsetting this are underspends elsewhere within the HRA. There's a favourable variance of £175,000 for housing management, £182,000 for planned maintenance, and £146,000 for responsive repairs and maintenance. As explained in the report, there has been a reduction in spend on the whole house servicing contract, a focus on urgent and emergency jobs, and also some employee cost savings. I should at this point remind you all that we still have healthy reserves and an overall HRA balance of just under £14 million as described in paragraph 6.10. Both councils' capital programmes have been reviewed to refine the pipeline of new build development and acquisitions alongside the review of the 30-year business plan and the affordability of these schemes. A more accurate picture is expected after Q2 when this work will have been completed. The capital programme is itemised in Appendix A and further detail provided in paragraphs 611 to 614 of the report. Due to COVID-19, a number of projects have fallen behind schedule and their budgets will be carried forward to meet expenditure incurred next year. And before opening up for questions and debate, I'd first like to move the recommendations in section 3 of the report that the shortfall of £17,000 be noted and that the capital programme be noted. And may I have a seconder for these recommendations, please? Councillor Osborne.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am more than happy to second this report. And like my opposite in Mid-Suffolk, I would like to add my thanks to the housing team who have done a fantastic job before COVID, but even more so through COVID. And I thank them very much for the work that they've done. And just to also add that the housing team are very much there to support tenants who are in genuine need because of COVID situation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Osborne. So I'm now going to take questions. If you could raise your hand and then I'll take questions from Cabinet members first. None? Okay. So given there's no questions, Councillor Eburn. You snuck in there quick.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yes, I thought I was a bit premature putting my hand up, but the previous item. So thank you very much for allowing me to ask a question. It was just that with regards to universal credit claimants, I know there's been a significant increase in that, in those people applying for universal credit, and I welcome Councillor Flatman's comments with regards to supporting our tenants that or maybe having to apply for that or in receipt of that. But I just wondered how regularly, given that government isn't providing any grants for the housing revenue account as they are for general fund, I just wondered how regularly we're reviewing the situation, particularly with regards to those increasing numbers of claimants, and therefore the impact. While I'd like to see the council do as much as they can to support them, but the impact on the housing revenue account. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Eburn. I believe, Gavin, you have an answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Eburn, for that question. I think in relation to universal credit, yes, we're naturally going to see an increase in response to COVID, and sadly, those individuals, those residents that unfortunately find themselves made redundant or lose their employment. Officers do actively work with DWP, Department of Work and Pensions, and they do actively work with caseworkers dealing with UC claimants, because naturally we know and we've seen from our experience that arrears are more likely to occur where UC is being paid directly to the claimants. Beyond the council and internally, we're currently developing some dashboards so that we can monitor at the touch of a button the level of arrears as a result of UC and those individuals that we need to provide additional support to. But at a county-wide level, we're actually working with county-wide authorities around developing of a new group supporting those vulnerable cohorts, such as UC claimants, such as those on furlough, such as those receiving free school meals, so on and so forth. And actually, that's a group that's being formulated as we speak. The first meeting I attended was last week, and that will be a monthly meeting that includes officers from the Department of Work and Pensions. And so what that will do is look at it through the lens of Suffolk, what's going on in Suffolk, and what we can do as Suffolk authorities to support those individuals that sadly find themselves in that position.
Thank you very much for that.
Thank you very much. Councillor Osborne, do you have a question?
No, sorry, it was an old hand. Sorry, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. No more questions, then I'll open it up for debate. So if you would like to raise your hand, if you would like to debate. No? Okay, I will now ask the Governance Officer to conduct the electronic vote.
Thank you, Chair. So, Mid-Suffolk Cabinet members, the vote is now in progress. If I could ask you to cast your votes. Okay, I'm waiting for one vote to come in.
Perhaps we could do that one verbally.
Yeah, is anybody aware that they haven't cast their vote? Because is anybody having problems with the vote? Okay, Chair, I'm unable to tell which person hasn't voted, which member hasn't voted. As we are stuck at 6 out of 7, I believe it would be best if we did a roll call.
Okay, thank you.
Just so that we confirm, because I don't want to sort of have 2 people voting twice by accident. So if we go through, when I call your name, if you could say for, against or abstain. Councillor Brewster.
We lost it.
Councillor Brewster.
Perhaps we could come back to Councillor Brewster.
Yep. Councillor Byrne.
For.
Councillor Flatman.
For.
Councillor Fleming.
For.
Councillor Gould.
For.
Councillor Morley.
For.
Councillor Richardson.
For.
Councillor Whitehead.
For.
And Councillor Brewster, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. For. Sorry.
Thank you, Councillor. That's unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much. And if you could now do the Babergh vote.
Okay, thank you. So, Babergh members, the vote should now be in progress. If you could cast your votes, please. Okay, we're waiting for one more vote. All received. Okay, Councillor Holt, can I ask for your vote, please?
For.
Thank you. That's unanimous, Chair. That's 7 votes out of 7 for.
Lovely. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
So now we're going to move on to the item 11, quarter 1 performance outcome reporting. So this is a presentation, and in line with our corporate plan, we've revised and refreshed our reporting style to reflect our strategic priorities. And this is the first publication in a revised format, which we will continue to improve upon going forward for subsequent quarters. And I'm now going to invite the Babergh Cabinet Member for Customers Digital Transformation and Improvement to introduce the item. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hopefully we're all up and running. So yeah, just following on from your introduction there, Chair. So the performance reports, being the first of their kind, as they are presented to us today, cover the period between April and June, and therefore obviously include the COVID-19 response activities as well as our strategic priorities. Members, you'll see the format for each service area is firstly the headline, followed by the objectives and the progress as measured against our strategic priorities. Previous performance reports have included operational measures, and those continue to be available on Connect, so we can dig down into the data. There is awful lot of information on here. One of the key areas that I would like to draw members' attention to is indeed the areas of activities around the communities, particularly, and the work that has been undertaken during the past 3 months as well, whilst we've been covering the COVID pandemic. An extraordinary amount of work, I'm sure everybody will agree, that's taken place. So hopefully members have had an opportunity to digest the reports as they are, and obviously we'll be glad to take any questions as they arise. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Parker. So I'm now going to invite the Assistant Director for Customer Services, Sarah Wilcox, who's now going to talk us through the presentation. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, councillors. Thank you, Cabinet members, for your introduction to our first iteration of this new style performance report. And just to clarify, really intended to focus and reflect on the council's overall performance with respect to Q1 of 2020. The slides are all available in the papers that you all have access to. I'm not envisaging going through all of the content in the slides because there is an awful lot there and I'm conscious of time, but just wanted the opportunity to run through some context with yourselves. You'll see that the presentation has a very different look and feel from previous years and is much more focused on reflecting the performance against our corporate plan and is therefore much more focused on strategic high-level priorities. The presentation has been grouped around our 6 key strategic priorities, so communities, housing, well-being, customers, environment and the economy, and illustrates for each council a number of headline performance indicators and then 3 or 4 key objectives against each of those priorities. We've also identified a 7th group that we've categorised as health of the organisation, and the measures and the objectives within this section really reflect the work that underpins and provides the foundation for us as an effective and efficient organisation, and one that then can therefore deliver against our corporate plan. As Councillor Parker confirmed, the presentation does reflect a snapshot in time and for the most part does cover the period April, May, June 2020. And throughout this period, obviously, both councils were very much focused on responding to the coronavirus pandemic. And you'll see that this has been reflected throughout the presentation. So you'll see references to specific additional work undertaken as a direct consequence of the emergency. So, for example, within the communities theme, we talk and you can read about the impact of our Home But Not Alone referrals. And within the housing theme, we reference the Everyone In project, where there's a substantial piece of work undertaken and still continues around our homelessness. Additionally, there are also references to where we've had to pause some planned activity so that we could prioritise our response to the emergency. As I mentioned, this is the first iteration of a completely different style performance report. All of the old measures that were used to focus on a much more operational level are still available for all members and officers to view. And moving into the second quarter and beyond, we fully expect that this style will continue to evolve. We expect to make a number of tweaks and improvements moving forwards. We want the presentation to serve both as an update and a snapshot in time of our council's overall performance, as well as look forward to all of the exciting new pieces of work and projects that will be coming up. And so this is very much seen as a piece of continuous improvement that we will look to evolve over the next few quarters. So with that in mind, I'll hand you back to the chair for any comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So we're now going to take questions. So if anybody would like to ask a question, please raise your hand now. Councillor Arthey.
Yeah, thanks. I'm not sure whether you were inviting questions from Cabinet members or from other members taking part.
Everybody.
Everybody, okay. Well, I've got a question about, really it's being unclear about some of the statistics in this report and whether they apply to both councils or one council. Sometimes it says Babergh only or Mid Suffolk only. Sometimes there are just figures. Now, obviously, to do with staffing and stuff, I would imagine that's obviously shared staff, so it's the same figure. But it seems to me that there are a few cases where we're not sure whether the figures, the pounds figures, or the statistics are one council or shared. And on page 26, I notice that Babergh District Council was named as one of the UK's top councils. Presumably, Mid Suffolk were not.
Was that a question?
Sorry, Chairman, I thought that was a question. Yes, it was a question.
Sarah.
It was a question about how the figures are arrived at and when they are joint and when they are one council only.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Councillor Arthey. Yeah, we do try to make reference to where if the figures are just specific to one authority, but generally they would cover both. Sometimes it's not possible for us to split those out over the individual authorities depending on the individual statistic, but I'm happy to take that away and to make sure that that's clearer for further reports moving forwards.
Okay, and just to be clear, on page 26, Babergh being named as one of the UK's top 10 councils, that was just Babergh, not Babergh and Mid Suffolk.
If it's on there as Babergh District, then yes, it would be as Babergh District Council. I think this probably relates to a specific campaign that we ran on social media where it was picked up, and so would likely to be Babergh related. But I'm happy to go away and clarify that for you.
Yes, it was a social media one. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other Cabinet members got any questions before I move on to everybody else? No? Thank you. Clive, if you could put your hand down. Thank you. Councillor Eburn.
Thank you very much, Chair. I had a same question as Councillor Arthey, actually, about it not being clear whether the numbers quoted were related to both councils or just one or the single council for which the report is being done. And the fact that the officer said, and I quote, they generally cover both has confused the matter even more. But anyway, I'll leave that one at that. If that could be made clear in the future, I think that'd be really helpful. But my other question is that about comparisons. I think only on the customers' data are there comparisons. So, for example, under the wellbeing data, it refers to 7 active schools. So is that in relation to 10 previously or 2 previously? Because whether it's an increase or a decrease, for example, similarly on housing, 36 properties relet, is that better or worse than previously? And I wondered if that could be addressed. And I also note that there's some fairly key indicators I would have thought, such as in housing, there aren't numbers on, say, number of homes purchased or right to buy houses sold. And I appreciate, obviously, this most recent quarter is completely COVID related. So it might be that you're intending to put those figures in future reports. But I just wondered, where some of that key data would be. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. Sarah?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, Councillor Eburn, just to reassure you, I think what we were trying to do with the new style format was to highlight the strategic priorities, particularly and the links with the corporate plan. There are a vast range of statistics and performance measures that all of our service teams across the 2 districts continue to collate and report upon. It's just that we haven't put them all in this presentation. We were concerned about the presentation being able to be viewed in a way that didn't require hours and hours and swathes of information on Excel spreadsheets, which was the case beforehand. But I'm happy to reassure you that the information continues to be collected and is available on Connect. So some of those particular operational measures that you've mentioned with respect to housing are there. We do continue to monitor and benchmark where appropriate as well, and that information is contained on those reports within the intranet on Connect as well. Where we think it's relevant or adds value, then we will illustrate that further in ongoing iterations of this presentation. But I'm sure, as you appreciate, benchmarking can be quite difficult when trying to measure like for like, because it's not always a given that we are measuring apples with apples, if you like. So we do hold that information moving forward, and our intention is to continue to do so. We're just elevating certain information into a slightly different format to give a clearer view of progress against strategic priorities.
Thanks very much for that. But I do think that some key data, such as the amount of homes we're purchasing, for example, should be on a report like this. It's public rather than Connect, which is the council's internal intranet. But hopefully I'll discuss that with you at a later date. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor McCraw.
There we are. I managed to get that done in time. I do apologise. Actually, I'd like to follow on from Councillor Eburn's point there, because I think it's a valid one. I must say, though, I do love, and I think this is a really nice piece of presentation. The use of colour, it's effective, and it will explain things perhaps rather better than the very lengthy tables. But that being said, I looked forward to those very lengthy tables every quarter, and particularly the third and fourth quarters. The first quarter is less concerning, although of course with COVID-19 that's perhaps not the case. What I would like to suggest, perhaps, and I wanted to ask officers if this will be possible, is that either the information that was previously published and in the format it was published and will be on Connect could either be available as an appendix, or, and I know that means that people will go into great depth and detail, but that's actually what Councillor Eburn is suggesting, and I would concur with, or a link be provided. But given that that link would be to Connect, and that's not accessible to the general public, perhaps that wouldn't be the case. Could I have any comments from officers on whether that would be possible? Because I don't want us to lose, as Councillor Eburn suggests, some useful data and just go for, if you don't mind my saying, headline information. Great graphics, lovely use of colour. It's not quite the whole story, though.
We're not losing any data.
No, we're not losing any data. It's whether it's actually openly accessible to the general public as well as to ourselves. And I think that's an important point. And Councillor Eburn is correct to raise it. So I'm just suggesting either a link or an appendix.
Sarah.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor McGraw. Yes, our aspiration is absolutely to be in a position where we are very transparent with our data and all of our performance information, and that we surface that to members of the public as well as to yourselves. Currently, the situation is such that that's what we're working on. We're not in a position at the moment to provide it in a way that we feel is user friendly for residents to be able to access that information, but happy to explore in the meantime looking at providing a link if that was helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Field.
Yes, I think those 2 points are valuable. A link would be useful. I did want to make just another couple of points, just restrict it to one area. I'm looking at page 61 of your report. It says, for instance, what we plan to do next. It's good. Business case for transferring leisure energy tariffs from blue to green. Okay. Develop an electronic vehicle charging business case. Neither of these have got any sort of target dates or anything. They could be any time in the next several years, and that's probably true of the 2 points above that as well. Although begin implication is pretty clear, but just making the point that I think sometimes one wants to keep these things clear and concise, but some idea of when we're intending to do this would be really useful. And that sort of reflects back throughout the document. If you're going to state that we're going to do something, we really should know what the time frame is. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Field. Sarah?
Thank you, Councillor Morley and Councillor Field. Yes, I agree with your point, and that's something that we will be looking at to improve upon in further iterations of this report. As a rule of thumb, the guidance we've given when discussing this with other colleagues across the organisation is that what we plan to do next is usually typically what would be coming in the next quarter. But I take your point, and we'll be looking at making sure that that's much clearer in future iterations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wellham.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of queries. One is on page 55. We've got some comparisons there. For instance, compliments received 70 is an increase of 126%. And then underneath we've got complaints received. We've got the number, but we don't know whether it's an increase or a decrease. So as other councillors have said, that would be very useful. And also I wonder if a significant number of the complaints seem to be about contractor improvement. That could be a concern of a contractor in one district who's not operating in the other. So those probably need to be broken down if that is the case. And the other query is on page 60. It's to do with mileage. If I can find it. This reduction in staff miles travelled. That's a reduction of 120,000 miles, which seems quite a lot. But we've got, is it partly to do with COVID, although much of that was before the COVID period. But we don't know what to compare it with. Is that?
Sorry, Councillor Wellham, what page are you looking at?
Page 60.
Page 60, thank you. Who would like to answer that? Sarah?
Chair, could I just interject just quickly?
Yes.
Sorry, I was going to say, because the reports are slightly different. So that figure actually on the Babergh report is actually shown on page 62 or page 18 of the actual report, just to clarify.
Thank you.
Chairman, I'm happy to reply to the latter point about the mileage.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
So I'm looking at page 60 on that relevant report, but it's the same figure on both. So I'm hoping that that's actually straightforward and does answer all of Councillor Wellham's questions, but it clearly doesn't, because that's not the way that Councillor Wellham has read it. So that is a reduction in staff miles travelled of 120,000 miles. That's the figure for both districts. So the bit in italics beneath is just confirming that figure is for both districts combined. And that's comparing the January to March period with the current quarter that we're talking about. So that's talking about 120,000 miles less than were travelled between January and March 2020, which is the other bit in italics. And you're absolutely right, it's entirely to do with COVID.
Right, thank you. But we don't know whether that's, I mean, it could well be a huge reduction, but we don't know.
It most certainly is a huge reduction in terms of that being 120,000, but I take the point. You haven't got the actual figure from the previous quarter, no.
And most of what's in here is good news. I just hope that if there are problem areas that need highlighting, that they would be highlighted in the same sort of way.
Yeah, absolutely, and just sticking with that same page, and directly above the 120,000. So the fact that we had to suspend the garden waste service for 8 weeks, clearly that's not good news. But you're absolutely right that the intention on this report and future versions of it, as Sarah was saying, is to be able to highlight both positive and negative in that regard, so that it is a full report. The key thing being, and just if I can just take a moment, just picking up the various points that were made about data. Data, of course, is important. What we want here more is analysis. So what does this tell you about the performance of the council against the corporate plan, as both cabinet members and the leader set out at the start? Not so much what does it tell you about the performance of an individual service in minute detail. That, of course, is of relevance to officers. It's of interest to members, I'm sure, but we don't want to try and go back to what we had before. And I'm pleased to hear the support from several members not to go back to the RAS and RAS of data rather than analysis.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Fleming.
Thank you. Yeah, I would also just wanted to comment on.
Are you asking a question?
No, I wanted to. I was responding to the mileage question because, and making a comment.
Okay.
Is that all right?
That's fine.
No, because I think a value like 120,000 miles less than last year isn't really meaningful unless we know what the total number of miles travelled was. I mean, it might be several million, in which case 125,000 is very little. So I do think, yeah, I know we're trying to get away from a lot of statistics and boring numbers, but I think there are some numbers that we will need to provide in order to make the numbers we show meaningful to people. So, you know, what I'm saying is I think, you know, we just need to play with this format a little bit more so that it's clear to the public, you know, what our improvements or otherwise really mean.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Wellham, you've still got your hand up. Councillor Field?
Yes, and I meant it this time. Just, is it a comment? Is it a question? Looking again at incidents of fly tipping, great that 95% were cleared, useful information. I think residents will be pretty interested to know how many people we prosecuted or nailed to the wall for their endeavours. So just another figure that could, I realise I'm adding to the number of numbers, but something that would certainly interests people in my area.
Okay, noted. So, Councillor Fleming, would you like to put your hand down? Thank you. Okay, so this item is noted. This is only for noting, so we're not going to have a debate and no vote is required for this one.
Can I get my...
Councillor Ward, did you want to ask a question?
Yeah, actually, yes. I should have put my hand up a bit earlier. I just a couple of things, and it's on the health of the organisation. It's good to see this indicator coming in now, and I think we can be reassured by some of the data that's coming out in that. Not just obviously with the fact that we are making an impression on social media, and it's good to see that Babergh is one of the top 10 councils. That really goes hand in hand with the fact that in the Halifax Quality of Life survey we were voted 8th best council. So I think we must be doing something right, notwithstanding our detractors out there in the community. But in terms of the health of the organisation, 95% of the staff felt fairly well informed about the current situation, and we've got average number of sick days per FTE are way down. But we do need to keep an eye on things. And I think that there's been quite a bit on in the press and on TV and radio recently about, particularly amongst the younger members of staff, that a number of organisations are finding are struggling coping with working from home and do benefit from the social interaction of coming into the office from time to time. So I think we do need to start looking at that and making sure that that's not having an adverse impact, and perhaps we do need to bring them back once in a while so that they can get that benefit of networking amongst their peers. But I think generally though we've done pretty well in terms of keeping things going and coping with the COVID crisis. So I'm pleased with the way this indicator is going. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Arthey, have you got a question?
It's not really a question, it's a comment as a result of the question about the staff miles. When I first saw this figure a few months ago, I was quite surprised. And I worked out exactly how far 120,000 miles would get you. And the answer is that it would be nearly 5 times around the circumference of the Earth, or halfway to the Moon. And that's just in 3 months. The only thing this figure doesn't say, though, is whether those were business miles or miles to work and back again. It would be quite interesting to know what the saving was in terms of what we pay in mileage as a result of that reduction in mileage.
Sarah, Arthur, anybody?
Yeah. I'll come in first, and hopefully somebody else will be able to save me in terms of the actual figure. So these are all business miles. So that's why we know them. That's why we know the figure. So these are miles that would have otherwise been claimed. So if you think about it, it was 120,000 miles that was claimed in the previous 3 months. So there will be a direct saving. I can't remember off the top of my head whether it's 45p a mile or 50p a mile or 40p a mile, but somebody I'm hoping will be able to save me in that regard. But you can quickly work out, roughly speaking, the amount of money that will be involved as a result.
I have. It's £50,000. But I presume there are also other benefits in the mileage that staff travel to work and back home again afterwards. They're not included here because they're not business miles. So the actual reduction in miles is probably more than 120,000.
Absolutely right. And in addition to that, obviously, it's not just a financial saving, but there'll be a carbon impact or lack of impact as a result as well.
Can I just ask, does that include councillor miles?
I don't know, Sarah, do you know whether that figure included the councillor mileage?
I don't know, but happy to go away and clarify that.
Just an interesting thought. Okay, thank you. Councillor Whitehead.
Yes, just a quick question on the customers. With customers telephoning us, the data is showing that it's taking 35 seconds, which is an average wait time down 64% from last quarter. Now, I'd assume that the people being contacted or answering the phone, presumably working from home, and therefore I'm surprised it's come down so much. Is it actually telling us that when people are working from home, they're actually answering the phone quicker than they were before? That's my question.
Thank you. Sarah?
What I can say is that we've been very effective, our staff working from home, and that the technology has allowed us to do that with a new telephony system that was put in place at the beginning of the year. Obviously, our wait times are impacted upon by volumes of people trying to call us as well. And whilst we see fluctuations all throughout the year, we have seen less volume coming through, which will have an impact on our times, but happy to report that yes, we have an average wait time of just 35 seconds.
Okay, thank you. Because most organisations I've phoned during COVID have been really slow to respond and have a message sort of saying, there's fewer staff around and please wait for a while to be, a 20-minute queue and things like that. So I think that's good for us.
Yeah, fantastic achievement. Clive, have you got another question?
No, I'm so sorry. I failed to take my hand down.
Thank you. Cassandra.
Hello, Chair. Thank you. I just wanted to confirm that the staff miles do also include member miles as well. So any miles claimed by members too.
Lovely. Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Wellham.
Yeah, just a very quick question. During COVID, we've given mobile numbers for contacting staff anyway, but I think we've been more likely to contact staff by mobile during COVID, and I just wondered whether the average wait time takes account of mobile telephone calls as well as the calls to the 01449 number or 01473 number.
I'm not sure how our system could tell that, but
yeah,
Sarah.
Thank you, Councillor Wellham. Yes, this is just in respect of our main number, and doesn't include individual mobile numbers that we would give out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, no more questions. This item is just for noting. So, thank you all for the questions. That was really good. So we're now moving on to item 12, MCA/19/71 and BCA/19/62, which are the civil expenditure programmes for September 2020 for Mid Suffolk and for Babergh respectively. So I'll now invite the Mid-Suffolk Cabinet Member for Planning to introduce the Mid-Suffolk District Council report. Councillor Byrne.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. This is a report on the Community Infrastructure Levy Expenditure Programme, which contains an update on the progress on decisions in bid rounds 1, 2, 3 and 4. Also included is a list of emerging projects for SIL bids in Appendix A, Section C. And this latter is another change made as a result of the recent SIL Expenditure Framework Review. I'm sorry about all these different types of SIL documents which you have to contend with, but it's a complex issue, and complex methods are used to monitor and determine everything. From the Cabinet paper, you'll see that there are 6 bids for which there are recommendations, 5 of which for Cabinet to make and 1 for Cabinet to note. And I'll just whip through, which is a euphemism for taking quite a long time, whip through the various bids, the 6 bids I'm talking about. I'll do them as quickly as I can. Bid M2007 is Thurston Rail Station, and this is money that will be coming from a ring-fenced infrastructure fund for Thurston only, and the bid is £100,000, which includes £10,000 road safety audits. The scope of the rail feasibility study has been agreed with the project group for this bid and aims to address recent housing growth in the village by improvements at the station, which will also be the subject of consideration by Highways. The project is essential in the infrastructure delivery plan, and a project group exists, which includes rail representatives, highway representatives, the parish council and district and county members, together with Suffolk County Council and Mid-Suffolk District Council officers, to steer this project forwards in line with the SIL expenditure framework requirements. Timescales for the feasibility work would start September 2020 and conclude March 2021 if this SIL bid were to be supported. This is important infrastructure, and the completion of the feasibility study is a necessary part of the rail process. This is known as GRIP, which is the governance of railway infrastructure projects, a protocol which Network Rail, or the rail system as a whole, insists is followed on any piece of rail work that isn't straightforward maintenance. The next bid is a Stowmarket bid, a Riedel car park, M21-18, and this is again ring-fenced infrastructure fund, Stowmarket only, and is a bid for £10,263. Total cost for this scheme £12,940. It affects the District Council's car park, where there is a significant investment and change occurring because of the improvements to the Riedel Theatre. The project aims to support this and encourages charging opportunities for electric cars within the market town of Stowmarket. The proposed installation of 2 fast charge EV charging points would mirror existing installations at Needham Market, which are rapid EV charger points, and which are 2 EV fast charger points, and help provide a network of charging opportunities. It represents an oven-ready, affordable scheme that meets the Council's respect to sustainable transport aims and objectives. Next to bid in I, which is bid M19-12, which is a Moors Children's Play Area, again from the local, or this one from the Local Infrastructure Fund, a SIL bid of £31,605. for a total cost of the project of 62,858. This proposal of replacing outdated and unsafe play equipment is well supported by the community, including the children of Eye, who have been consulted on the type of equipment they would like to have. The project would provide much improved leisure and community facilities for the community and encourages active outdoor play for the children. Revised scoping of the project, together with amended costings and the screening for unspent 106 contributions, has reduced the level of SIL being asked for in this respect, in respect of this project, from £50,000, which it was originally, to £31,605. Now, this equates to 50% of the total cost of the works, as I've said, and meets the new requirements of the SIL expenditure framework. The fourth bid is for Debenham, bid M1903, which is at the Leisure Centre, for an additional car park from the Local Infrastructure Fund. It's a SIL bid for £47,000 for a project costing in total nearly 90,000. The purpose of the project is to provide additional parking, 41 spaces, for the community, not just for leisure centre users. Many different users use the current car parking facility, such as the staff and visitors of the Debenham High School during term time, the parents of the Debenham High School pupils for parents' evenings and other events, visitors to nearby groups, including the youth group, mother and baby, etc., and residents disposing of recyclable materials. The creation of this additional car park would therefore benefit the new and future residents as well as the wider community. The Debenham Neighbourhood Plan, made in March 2019, also makes references to the leisure centre and its importance in providing car parking. Planning permission has been granted for the car park, and revised costings, together with the screening for unspent 106 contributions, has reduced the level of SIL being asked for from 90,000 to 47,000. This equates to the SIL bid being 52% of the total cost of the works and meets the new requirements of the SIL expenditure framework. And finally, for a decision today, the Wingfield Barns bid, M20-08, which is the conversion of a granary as a children's nursery, again from the Local Infrastructure Fund, SIL bid of £34,000, total costs of the project £59,500. Now, this property is owned by the District Council. Planning permission's been granted for the proposed use of the granary for a children's nursery, together with listed building consent for the proposed alterations. The project is to be funded collaboratively with funds from the Wingfield Barns CIC of £10,000 and a Mid-Suffolk District Council community grant of £15,500. The level of SIL being asked for in respect to this project is 34,000, which equates to 57% of the total cost of works and meets the new requirements of the SIL expenditure framework. And then finally, there's one decision for Cabinet to note, which is Bedfield, bid M19-13, which is a new play area from the Local Infrastructure Fund. SIL bid £4,500, total costs £35,000. And this proposal represents a scheme with wide community support that would provide additional leisure and community facilities for the community and encourage outdoor active play for the children. The project is to be funded collaboratively from a variety of organisations, including the National Lottery, Mid-Suffolk District Council Community Grant, 10,000 each from those two, as well as other organisations and a local business, Adnams, were also contributing a proportion of the funds. So this equates to the SIL bid being only 13% of the total cost of the works and meets the new requirements of the SIL expenditure framework. The project has been determined under delegated powers and is for Cabinet to note only. Works have already started on site with partial drawdown of funds to pay for completed works. So the recommendations are as set out in your report. At paragraph 3.1, Cabinet to make these decisions at Thurston, Stowmarket, Debenham and Wingfield, and to note the delegated decision at Bedfield. And then at paragraph 3.2, you're asked to note and endorse the SIL expenditure programme. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. Do we have a seconder?
Well, until we do, could I just say that you will appreciate from all that I've just been saying that the business of assessing these bids, receiving these bids, checking them through, deciding whether the projects can be supported by other grants that are available from other sources, etc., is a huge amount of work which is done by a very small team. And so I would like to compliment Christine Thurlow and her team for excellent work on this particular field. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. Do I have a seconder?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay. Second.
Councillor Brewster?
I'm very happy to second this, Madam Chair. Sorry, I was on the wrong screen when I was trying to mute.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fleming. Before I move on and ask Councillor Ward to introduce the Babergh SIL report, can I just ask a question of our monitoring officer? I am a lifetime member of Debenham Sports and Leisure. Do I need to declare a non-pecuniary interest in the Debenham SIL bid?
Yes, you can do.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Ward, would you like to start off the Babergh?
Yes, thank you. And at this point, I'd like to invite the Babergh Cabinet Member for Planning to introduce the Babergh's SIL report. So if I'll hand over to Councillor Arthey now, please.
Thanks, John. Yes, our report is not quite so lengthy as the Mid-Suffolk one, and that's simply because although you've got a lot of detail in your papers, the recommendations are actually very, very simple and for noting only, and that's because there are no bids for you to approve today. As I said, they're just two for noting. So the bundle of papers that you've got, all of the preamble is similar to the Mid-Suffolk stuff. So you've got the Cabinet report, the SIL expenditure programme, and the technical assessments for the individual SIL bids. That's at Appendix B. You've also got updates on decisions that have been made in all of the previous bid rounds. For you today for noting are just two projects. There's the first one is in Hadley, and that's at the health centre, and that's for conversion of a room for chemotherapy treatment. The amount being sought there is relatively low. That's £3,526, which obviously comes under the delegated decision limit of £10,000. So that's why it's only for noting, and that work is now complete. The second one is for Holbrook Village Hall, and that's an enhancement and upgrade of the existing facilities in the kitchen. That's something that didn't need planning permission, and the amount being sought there is £9,900. That represents, I think, about just under 75% of the total cost of the work. If you remember, we have put a £75,000 and a 75% limit on funding now, and that decision was taken in August. So, as I said, that's just for noting. You will see within the papers the progress on the previous bids, and I will remind you that in June there were 3 bids for your approval. They were in Sudbury, Chelmsford and Newton, and that the amount that you approved then totaled just under £300,000. But all you have to do today is approval of the recommendations at 3.1 and 3.2, which, as I said, are for noting. If anybody has any detailed questions on any of the other bids, I'm pleased that we've got Christine Thurlow with us, and hopefully she'll be able to answer those. Thank you.
And do you have a seconder?
Yes, I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Ward. So if everybody, you could put your hands up if you wish to ask a question. Councillor Brewster. You're muted, Councillor Brewster.
I did wonder about this, but having you said, should you have declared an interest in the Debenham one? Yeah, I think I should probably declare a non-pecuniary interest in the Stowmarket one as well.
Okay, thank you. If there's no more questions from Cabinet members, I'll go to Councillor Wellham.
Thank you, Chair. And just a quick query on page 92, one of the appendices, where we have 2 Stow Upland developments listed there. The first development is for 75 homes. The second is for 100 homes. There was a third application which was approved, which was for, I think it was for 34 of the homes approved under the second of those applications to be replaced by 53 homes, bringing the total up to 194. So I wonder if that would presumably make a difference to the amount of sill to be collected. I'm not expecting an answer now. It's just something that perhaps could be looked into.
Thank you. Christine, do you happen to know offhand?
No, I don't know offhand, but I'm happy to take that offline and find out and let Councillor Wellham know.
Okay, thank you very much. Any more questions? Okay, so we're going to move into debate. If you'd like to raise your hands, if you would like to debate. No. Okay, I will now ask the Governance Officer to conduct the electronic vote. Thank you.
Sorry, Chair, can I just make a point?
Yes.
Since there's only 8 of us, isn't it quicker to do a roll call rather than faff around with this electronic stuff? I can understand it for the council when there's 40 or whatever there is, but for 8 people, it's quicker to just read our names out, isn't it?
It's not about speed, it's about getting you used to using the system. We'll continue with the electronic vote.
Okay, how are the other 25 members going to get used to the system then?
They will have their own routine.
Okay, thank you, Chair. The Mid-Suffolk vote is now in progress, so if I can ask you to cast your votes now, please. Okay, thank you. Chair, may I ask your vote, please?
4.
Thank you. So that is unanimous, Chair. The motion's carried.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And for Babergh members, if you could cast your votes now, please. Okay, Councillor Holt, can I ask for your vote, please?
Yes. You can, and for.
Thank you. Okay, again, that's unanimous. Thank you. The motion's carried.
Thank you very much. So that concludes the business of the day. The date and time of the next meeting is scheduled for Monday the 28th of September at 09:30. Thank you everybody for taking part. See you again soon.
Thank you.